What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor season 47, episode 7. My name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and Rachel's reaction, I feel like, is kind of indicative of how I felt about the episode. Where last week we were so excited about the fact that they didn't do the split into like all of that hullabaloo, and then this week Jeffrey Probst decides to just do that anyway, and
That's
I
me.
really didn't like this episode.
I'm literally speechless. I too did not like this episode. I did not like the twists, the advantages. It just felt like production is getting too involved. And then I feel bad for everyone involved. Like, it sucks to be Rachel here, and you get basically tribe screwed, tribe swap screwed, and you're going home. But then it also sucks to be Tiana here, because if not for the advantage later on in the episode, then she probably wouldn't have been going home here either. And then it just extra sucks that it's right before the jury. So there's so much at stake. It just bad. I don't like it.
Yeah, it felt too much like just random chance, where it was random which team you were put on, and then who got the safety without power advantage was random, or basically random, and it just too much of it was just up in the air. It was just unfun to watch, because like we said last week, the thing that makes it interesting is how the players maneuver each other, and it wasn't interesting to go from Rachel as basically the automatic vote out to Tiana is basically it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun to watch. I'm sure it wasn't fun as a player to be there, and half the players didn't even get to do anything, because Saul is the only one who had any sort of power on the winning team, which is stupid.
Literally, we're going from a tribe of 12 to now 4 people are only up for elimination, and only 5 people are voting. And I'm like, it just is not fun. It's the merge. Everyone should be voting. Or if you're going to do the split tribals, at least send both to tribal council. I don't know. It's either way. Last week at the end of the week, we were like, okay, they're probably splitting 6-6 next week, or they'll do it 5-5 at final 10. Either way, not a fan of it. It just would prefer everyone being able to vote, everyone being up for elimination, or I don't know. It's just it sucks for everyone involved here, and such a pivotal point of the game too.
Yeah. I feel like this wasn't strategic at all. You could maybe argue that there was strategy in voting out Tiana instead of Gabe, but with the amount of time that they had to figure it out, no.
And maybe you argue okay, if Rachel were a better player, if Tiana were a better player, then okay, they could maneuver their way out of this situation. But at certain points, I feel okay, it doesn't really make sense for the 5 to flip on each other and not vote Rachel out. So there's not really much you can do there. And then to have X amount of time at tribal council to try to figure it out. And it's we basically saw from the edit, okay, if Blue were to go back to another tribal pre-merge, which basically this was another pre-merge Blue tribal council with the 5 of them, Tiana is probably the one going. We could tell that from the edit, but if it weren't this happening this week, Tiana wouldn't be the one going home. She probably would have made the merge. So it just extra sucks.
Yeah, it extra sucks. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the editors were trying to give us an interesting story of here's why Blue might not want to vote out Rachel, but it very much felt like grasping at straws for creating some sort of conflict to hide the fact that Rachel is going to get the safety without power advantage. So I think the thing that was most frustrating about this is that it felt very manufactured. It didn't feel natural, because first you had the manufacturedness of the splitting it into 2 different tribes, and then you had 2 different groups that weren't technically tribes, but just so happened to include all of one pre-merge tribe plus an extra person. Do I believe that it was rigged? No, but it is kind of suspicious. And then like the manufacturedness of like the finding of the advantage, like none of this would have happened without production interference.
Yeah, it's literally like what we said. Production is getting too involved here. It's just too many things happening. And yeah, I'm like, people online were like, oh, they should have voted Gabe out. And I was like, Gabe is not going home here. It is between Rachel and Tiana. I said that once this team lost immunity. And I'm like, as for us, I feel like it's very predictable watching the episode and seeing the two teams split. Okay, if it's not Rachel, probably Tiana of this losing tribe. Like, they're never voting Gabe out in this spot.
Yeah, no. Like, it's really easy to Monday morning quarterback and be like, oh, it would have been a good strategic move to vote Gabe out, but like, that wasn't going to happen.
So we start the episode off. Soul is the only person to have written Andy's name down last week, which I was wondering, okay, how did they know this? And then we see Saul like talking with Andy about it. But there's so many people voting. Couldn't he have played it off like, yeah, I voted for Sam or someone else? It was just interesting that, okay, they all knew that Saul voted for Andy here.
Yeah, everyone did. I feel like Saul did a pretty good job of smoothing things over with Andy, though.
Yeah, he threw Sam under the bus, which is what we were talking about last week. Like, okay, this could be dangerous because Gata was so easily just like, okay, yeah, you can vote Andy out. They're so easy to let him go. And it does look like that information has gotten back to Andy. He's doing the numbers on the beach the entire night. So, like, that's why I'm also sort of sad. Like, we didn't see Andy wreak havoc this episode, which is what we wanted to see last week. But maybe it's building up for next week, and Andy is going to wreak havoc on these people.
Yeah, I think part of why Andy couldn't wreak havoc is obviously because of the split tribal. And I kind of hope that this doesn't like cool his anger any, because like it would suck if we also were denied Andy's revenge arc because of this stupid split tribal. So
true. We also see Genevieve and Andy making a bond as like the single solo people on the island. So we could see them working together come next time. But yeah, I think that's just another thing. It's like the lead up pre immunity challenge. We see all of this potential drama happening between Andy versus Sam and Gata, and like Genevieve wanting to bring Andy in. So it's not like, okay, Andy's going to get voted out this episode. It's like there's a lot of maneuvering that these people can do if Andy really did want to try to get a group together to try to vote Sam or Sierra out here. And then it just feels like we're saying stilted, because then we go into the challenge and then like, okay, none of this is going to happen this week.
yeah, so again, why don't they just trust the players to do interesting things? Like,
But yeah, like apparently though, Jeff didn't like last week's tribal with like everyone just voting Rome out, because he's like, oh, too many people. There's basically hive mind, and then everyone votes one way.
I think that is a stupid take, but you know, that's okay. I think the thing is, not everyone necessarily wanted Rome out, but if you know that Rome is going to be the one to be voted out regardless, you're going to vote that way so that you can like stay in the majority, and so that you can like not alert the person that you're voting out or that you want to vote out that they're on the chopping block. Like, there's a lot of reasons that there could be a unanimous vote that is not everyone wanted the same person to go home.
I agree. Or just do tribe swaps again and then not merge at 13 and then have an unmerging here at 12. You could just wait until you're at 12 or 11 to merge, and then you're starting to like dwindle the numbers down. You might not have those big unanimous votes where one person just gets steamrolled out of the game. But like, it's so annoying. We were so happy last week with, oh, there's the no more mergatory. This is like a real merge again. Only one person's got immunity and everyone else can still vote. And there's not like all of this wacky stuff happening, to then have it just undone this week. It just, sort of annoying.
Yeah, more than sort of annoying. It was very annoying. It's just like, it feels useless to even talk about the strategy because the strategy didn't result in anything.
Speaking of, we also see a potential women's alliance form pre-immunity challenge, and then I just wrote LMAO in my notes.
Yeah. I feel like what Teeny said about like the women's alliance has almost become a trope is very true, where it feels like every season it's like mentioned, but then every season it kind of fizzles out.
Yeah, and with Tiana going here, no more women's alliance. Maybe they could start it up again next week. But we go to the immunity challenge. They're split into two groups of 6. One team is entirely safe, but they don't get to vote at tribal. And then you have one team up for elimination, with one person of that team being the individual immunity challenge winner. So they're safe. And then the person getting voted out here is not going to make it to the jury. So team 1 was Genevieve, Teeny, Soul, Sierra, Sam, and Andy. Team 2 was Rachel, and then Caroline, Sue, Tiana, Gabe, and Kyle. As we saw this episode, I feel like team 1, the like 3 versus 3 with Sam and Andy team, would have been a lot more interesting if they lost. I was hoping they would lose the challenge, because then it's probably like Andy flipping to go with Old Red and they're voting Sam or Sierra out here.
Yeah. Everything you said, 100% true. You are stealing all of my analysis. So maybe stop doing that.
Yeah, I really thought, since we got all of that Andy stuff pre-immunity, that they would go and then we would have like some fun here, and then that would have been more interesting, because there's not a clear person that you send the advantage to, because then maybe someone would have used it to block a vote rather than safety without power. I think team 1 losing would have been a lot more fun and interesting, but also still sad based off of like the production interfering like we're talking about.
Yeah, I think team 1 would have been more interesting, but I also feel like team 1 winning was kind of inevitable because they had, I feel like, the stronger challenge participants.
Yeah, so group 1, they win, team 2 loses. Kyle technically wins individual immunity again here, even though he technically lost to Teeny and Genevieve of the winning team. I feel like Kyle winning individual immunity here, even though he's not the winner overall of this challenge, looks really bad, because like Teeny Genevieve technically won. They maybe could have battled it out even more to be the true winner of the challenge. But then Kyle, being like 3rd place, wins the necklace. And now Jeff keeps on saying, oh, Kyle, you won 2 in a row. But like, technically, you didn't win 2 in a row, but it's just going to create a big target on his back.
I also feel like winning 2 in a row isn't that impressive, like, to me personally, especially just because, like you said, he didn't win. He just was the last one standing in his group of 6. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like you won back to back, like, doesn't really matter that much. Like, yeah, if he wins 3 in a row, maybe we can talk, but like 2 in a row could just be like a statistical error, you know? So
Yeah, I do feel like it's bad for him, because he didn't technically win, but he's getting all the hype for, winning the challenge, though he wasn't the winner. And bad for him, because first time he doesn't win individual immunity, I feel like people are going to want to target him, especially because we've seen like Sue doesn't necessarily like Kyle because Kyle wrote her name down. People could be after him. And if he's being brought up as a big challenge threat for winning one challenge and technically winning a second challenge here, first time he loses one might not be good for him. But also good for everyone around him in his alliance, because he's going to be the first one voted out of your alliance.
yeah, but I also feel like it's one of those things where Kyle isn't like a showboat about the fact that he has won the 2 immunity challenges. Like, he's very like, oh shucks about it. And I feel like part of it like does depend on like your attitude, in the sense of like, he's not like trying to make himself like Joey Amazing or anything. He's literally just like, oh, I'm really happy to be safe tonight, which I feel like might affect the way that he's perceived.
I do think it'll be interesting because it seems like, okay, last week he tried to win the challenge because he didn't have a vote. This week, technically, he lost to Teeny and Genevieve, like he didn't win the challenge. So it'll be interesting going into the future whether he feels like, okay, I feel a little bit of pressure now. People might want to try to vote me out because they perceive me as a challenge beast. Though, like, one challenge win is not really a second challenge win. So it'll be interesting to see, like, okay, do I need to keep winning challenges because now people perceive me as a big challenge threat? Or do you risk it and let someone else win next week to be like, hee hee, guys, like, actually, the first one was like a fluke and I'm actually not that good at these things?
Yeah. I don't know, because part of it is also like in this split tribal thing, you do have an incentive to keep going, even if you would maybe want to like not, in order to make yourself seem weaker. Like if Kyle were to be like, oh, this was a fluke, like I'm bad at this one, that's different because like he could have avoided going to tribal at all if he happened to win over like the other side. So like in this format also like almost incentivizes people to win back-to-back challenge. Well, people are always incentivized to win. You hear what I'm saying? You're picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah, I feel like it'll be interesting for Kyle going forward. Like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like you can't keep winning challenges, but it will become to the point where you're sort of forced into that role because first time you lose, or if you don't have a hidden immunity idol or any kind of advantage, people are probably going to want to target you. I think he could say, like, okay, the first two challenges here were more like endurance, they're balance challenges. Maybe he's like, yeah, I'm really bad at puzzles. I'm not a threat. A lot of the ending challenges of Survivor are like more puzzle based. So we could try to throw that out there. But if you're like, okay, this person hasn't won, I want to win, we need to vote them out because now this is the first time they're unimmune.
Mm-hmm. I don't know though. I think it really depends again on how Kyle is able to play it, and then also how worried his alliance members are about him steamrolling them to the end.
Yeah, I could see, like, if you're blue and you're working with Kyle, fake working with him maybe, if like in Sue's case kind of thing. I think it's like the first time he is not immune, a little bit down the line, you do try to vote him out because you wouldn't want to be like, okay, I'm working with someone that's going to be immune from like final 7 onwards if they can keep on winning. Because then that's bad for you because, oh, Kyle's safe. Well, now we have to vote out Sue and Caroline because everyone else is safe.
Yeah.
But Kyle wins individual immunity, though technically not winning the entire challenge. The team that won the challenge, they get to go on the reward. The ribs, I thought looked really good. And like the corn and everything, I was like, this food does look really good. Better than the hot dogs from the other week.
Yeah, they actually got like a full meal for one thing. Um, I did think it was funny how they all were like, okay, we ate, now we're gonna food coma. Like it was just a unanimous food coma time. So I feel like the looking for the advantage at this reward was the most interesting part of the reward, just because since they knew that they weren't voting, there wasn't really a lot of strategy talk. So I personally think it would have been fun if they hadn't told the winning group that they weren't voting, like until they got back from the reward. Like if they thought that they were going to vote until the last minute, because then I feel like people would scramble. But who knows? That also is a production interference-y type of move, though. So
That's true. There isn't or wasn't any like strategy talk, more just like, okay, speculation. Rachel sucks for her. Oh, we're scared for her, but like, okay, not really much we can do about it because it's like they're all separated until they get to tribal council. Maybe you let them reconvene before tribals, so then the people that don't have a vote could still potentially influence the vote in some way, but like completely separating them and then they know they can't even vote. They just basically have the afternoon off, which would be nice. You just get to relax and hang out there. But I do feel like that feels a little bit more of like the production interference, like we're talking about. It just sort of stunts the gameplay because half of these people, maybe they would have an investment of like, oh, I want to work with Gabe, so we need to try to not let Gabe get voted out here. Or I do want to try to keep Rachel around. Can we convince the people that do have a vote not to vote Rachel out? Maybe they could have done something like that.
Yeah. I also feel like part of it is because of the way the teams split up. Like, not a lot of people are invested in the outcome of the vote because, like, no one really cares if one of the 5 Chuku goes home. But then also, I feel like it's kind of assumed with the 5v1 that Rachel is going to go home. And so there's not really a lot of like discussion about what's going to happen just because it seems pretty obvious. So I feel like maybe if there was a little bit like healthier of a mix, things would have been different as far as like them being more invested and not feeling like they just had an afternoon off.
Exactly. But we see Andy looking for advantages in the food containers. Everyone notices. The camera kept on panning to the scroll in the side of the hut that they were in. Lucky for Soul here being the closest one to the advantage. I was like, okay, that's lucky. That's nice that you pick that end spot near the pole. And then he gets this advantage, and you have to use it today. The person who gets it has to use it today, and you have to send it to someone on the losing team. It's either a block a vote or a safety without power advantage. Low key, though, I feel like this could be a disadvantage. I feel like you're helping someone out here who maybe should have gotten voted out. You're low key like, oh, time machine, you're changing history here. If Rachel makes it further than Soul later, it's sort of like, okay, you helped this person beat you in the game.
Yeah, but also you could make the argument that having Tuku now down by one more person is going to be more beneficial in the long run because like they can't like all vote as a block. But I guess it's very interesting the way that people are perceiving Tuku because a lot of the Tuku people are like, oh, there's 5 of us, so we don't have a majority, but there's also enough of us that we're a threat. And I feel like that's not really the way that I was seeing it, where I didn't see people being like, oh, I definitely want to get a Tuku out because there's 5 of them. So I don't know. I feel like in some ways it was good that Tuku kind of had to turn on each other this episode, just for everyone who is not a Tuku member. So
yeah, the whole if we stay 5 strong next time, it's 6 versus 5 going in. If like, okay, the 6 people on the winning team now all band up and then they go 6 versus 5 against all of the old Tuku, which I was like, okay, yes and no. I feel like I wouldn't vote Gabe out here because Gabe is a shield similar to Kyle, even though he has immunity. Keep Gabe and Kyle around, especially if you are the women here, because Gabe and Kyle are going to catch votes before you are. And we see Caroline say that, like, they're not going to come after us. They're going to come after Gabe and Kyle. So I'm like, I would not be doing other people's dirty work. If they want to vote Gabe out, let the entire 12 people group vote Gabe out. I'm not wasting my vote to vote Gabe out when he's going to be a big threat coming into the real merge. So I was like, yeah, don't vote Gabe out. And I feel like for Caroline and Sue, who are legitimately working with Gabe, like you do keep him around, even if it is like 5 strong next time. Kyle and Gabe are still going to be voted out before you're voted out.
yeah, for sure. So I don't know. I feel like people are very divided on Gabe and whether or not he's like a mastermind villain or just a little bit of a goof, like in the Survivor fandom, that is. So I'm curious to see how Gabe's story in particular plays out because I think that will kind of set the tone for the rest of the season.
Apparently, there's a lot of drama on Twitter right now with Gabe.
Him and Rome are beefing.
Yeah. So It was interesting too to see Caroline want to keep Tuku strong. We saw it a few weeks ago when she's like, okay, Tiana, you need to apologize to Gabe. We have to stick together. And it's interesting to see basically everyone's on board. They're like, okay, it is smart for us five to stay together, even though Gabe might not like Tiana, Sue might not like Kyle. There's like inner beef and cracks within them, but they're willing to like, okay, let's put that aside. So then the five of us can just all make it to the jury. We can all make it there. I think like it doesn't make sense to split up here. I think, yeah, you should be voting Rachel out here.
Yeah, especially when you think about like jury members. I feel like a lot people say that they vote for the person who played the best game, but then also the person that you've been with from the beginning has a better idea of like your whole game and might be more inclined to say you played the best game because they know you from the beginning. So it's advantageous to have a lot of your beginning tribe on the jury because then they can vouch for like what you did pre-merge to set you up well for merge and like all of that kind of stuff. So I do think it was the smartest idea, even if they had internal cracks, to vote Rachel out. Would have been great if they had actually gotten the chance to do that.
I agree. So Soul sends the power to Rachel. Like, there's no, there's like, it's obvious. Like, that is what you basically have to do here. Um, Maybe I feel like he should have told people that he found the advantage rather than keep it a secret. Because now maybe going back to camp, people are going to be like questioning, oh, someone lied to us. Blue team might be like, why the heck did you have to mess up our tribal council and be mad about it? So maybe there's an argument that you say, oh, maybe I send it to like Gabe or Caroline to form a relationship there and try to have like a inter-tribal dynamic blue plus soul relationship kind of thing. But like, I think it could bite him in the butt next week that he didn't tell people. And maybe he goes to Rachel and it's like, I sent you that. I know I sent you that because I know there was two advantages on there. You could do safety without power or you could block a vote. And that would legitimize that he was the one that sent it. But I feel like sending it like, okay, Rachel can have like, yay, I like you now. But just because he saved you doesn't mean that she has to work with him now.
Yeah, I don't think that there's an expectation that they'll work together, but I do think it is better for Saul not to like have the entirety of Tuku be mad at him for like messing things up. So I think in general it's better not to say that you found an advantage until you can figure out how to make it as advantageous as possible for you. So I think that the situation where Saul goes to Rachel and is like, hey, I saved you, is probably the smarter thing rather than telling everyone and then figuring out what to do from there.
I would think he should have told the people that he won the challenge with, and he's like, okay, like Sam, Sierra, Andy, Teeny Jen, like I found this advantage. I'm thinking XYZ. What are you all thinking? And then they're like, oh, obviously, let's go save Rachel kind of thing. And then you make it a group kind of decision. Sure, it might like take down your agency of, oh, I found an advantage. I changed the game. This is one of my big moves of the game. I did it all by myself. But it will be interesting to see if Blue is pissed off, if they do learn who did this to their tribal council, if they are pissed off at him, or if they framed it like, oh, it was a big group decision. I found it, but it was our decision. Then maybe Blue would be less mad. But then it doesn't really get you that bond with Rachel if he's like, yeah, all of us wanted this, compared to I saved you. Maybe that gives you a little bit more of a bond. But I do think maybe if he brought like Sam and Sierra in on it, then Sam and Sierra would put in a good word to Rachel, like, okay, we can work with him now because like we worked with each other on this one vote.
I feel like though if you try to bring other people in, then there's a very big chance that other people then take credit for it. Like, oh, Saul wanted to save Tiana, but then I convinced him, Rachel, to save you instead, or something like that. And I think like making it into a group thing when it doesn't have to be a group thing probably wouldn't work out in Saul's favor. Because even if everyone was on board to like save Rachel, I feel like then it still is the same result, but Saul doesn't have that same relationship with Rachel. Like he doesn't really need to build a better relationship with anyone else on the like winning team right now. And I feel like especially like having him work with Sam and Sierra, who are known to be a power couple. Like, you never want a third wheel a power couple. So I think that he made the best choice in this situation to not tell anyone else, not make it a group decision, and like just shut up about it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting next week though if it does piss people off and come to bite him in the butt, and then maybe he should have told people, or if it was best to keep it a secret. But I feel like with tribal council, they spent too much time on like, oh, Rachel's going home, da 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 da, and then she just leaves tribal council. So nothing really mattered of the whole first half of tribal. I'm like, dang, we wasted so much time. Like, okay, it's a good TV moment, maybe that you're thinking, she's the dead person walking, she's about to get voted out, and then she leaves tribal. But I was like, we just wasted time. All her talk was useless because she's going home, like being safe.
Yeah, it felt kind of like when a movie just has a plot twist that ruins the rest of the movie. Like, it was a plot twist in the episode, but it wasn't very fun.
Yeah, so Rachel gets the advantage. She uses the safety without power, like any sane person would do in this situation. So then it becomes just the regular Tuku 5 tribal council. Tiana's crying about how much it would mean to her to make it to the jury. And then I was like, okay, Tiana's going home.
Yeah. Which I feel like kind of jives with what we were saying, where Tiana, like 2 episodes ago, suddenly like started appearing more, and we were like, oh, that's not good for her. So
I do think it's interesting that Kyle flipped too and voted Tiana out. Because I think if it was like Kyle and Tiana voting together versus the 3 others here voting together, then Caroline would be in a bad spot going back, because it felt like, okay, Caroline is sort of the swing vote with Gabe and Sue on one side and then Tiana and Kyle on the other, and both sides thought they were good with her. So it's good that Kyle also voted with Caroline, Sue, and Gabe. So then if Kyle was the only person voting incorrect once Tiana goes, Kyle might be mad at Caroline. So I think it would be interesting to know how and why Kyle flipped his vote to vote Tiana out, and like who convinced him that. Because even though there are cracks in the blue team, they could sort of go back 4 strong because they all voted together, and like Caroline didn't have to blow up her spot like, oh, actually I'm really close with Gabe and Sue, sorry Kyle.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things though where maybe Kyle wasn't convinced. Maybe he just realized that the votes were going a certain way and he didn't want to be left out of the vote. Which again, like we were saying earlier, a unanimous vote doesn't necessarily mean that everyone agreed that it was the best decision. It means that everyone was like, trying to save their own butt.
Yeah, so it would be interesting to know his thought patterns. Like, was he convinced by Caroline or Gabe to vote her out? Or was it like, okay, I see the writing on the wall, I'm just going to go with the team to save my own butt? Because if I'm the odd person out voting, then that's extra dangerous once I don't win that immunity necklace.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a very interesting next episode of Survivor. I am excited. Hopefully, it's an 11-person tribal council and no funny business happens.
We can hope, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
Yeah, and I think I actually will be watching next week's episode tonight because I'm going. Rob and CBS, they're hosting a like pre-screening of next week's episode tonight. So I was like, oh, I will figure it out tonight and see what happens for next week's episode. So that is very exciting.
Yes. But that's also why we
Yeah.
had the podcast today, so that Rachel couldn't spoil anything.
I'll be in the future come this evening.
Indeed.
Yeah, so thank you all so much for watching this episode with us. Did you like the split tribal council? Let us know in the comments. Did you like the safety without power advantage? Let us know. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you all next time.